and they work the hay up to the top of the conveyor here. And believe me, they are really efficient working machines. If you got a huge windrow, they'll just bury you on the wagon with the hay that's coming over the top of it. There was one particular person I know that they refer to this as the green wave. They said when the hay starts coming, it's just like a green wave coming over the top of you, with the hay. And this was in when loose hay days. The balers were not practical, and a lot of people, and for farms, dairy farms, stuff like that, they cut their hay, they loaded it on the wagon, they took it either to a stacker, like there's out in the middle of the field a pole with that they could reach down and pick it up, or they had hay trolleys in the barn where they used either a series of either rope or chain slings that they laid down on the bottom of the slings. The way they used them, they laid like them down on the bottom of their hay wagon. They'd have an 8x16, 8x14 hay wagon. They'd lay down like 3 sets of ropes, or 3 ropes across the bottom. And they'd take off with the hay loader and lay the hay, as the hay would be coming onto the wagon, they'd be forking it around, putting it around on the wagon over the top of all of these ropes. These 3 ropes that are laying there. And then it was kind of like a magic amount of hay that they felt, okay, this is enough. They stop, they lay down another set of ropes on top of the hay that they had just stacked on this wagon, all flat across, laid out really nice, probably 1.5 feet deep, 2 feet deep. Take off again, put another 2 feet of hay on top of those ropes, stop and put down another set of ropes, and then fill the wagon the rest of the way. Then they would go to the barn, pull up in front of the barn, and they had a block and a tackle. There's some of them around here. They're hay trolley systems. They would come down from the hay loft. You'd be parked outside, and they'd have like a set of fingers like this here, and then you put the 3 ends of the ropes from each side into those fingers like that, and you have your horse on the other corner of the barn, and you'd pull the sling the hay up into the barn. It would go up to the top of the track. And once it hit the track, there was a block. It was a quick release. It would lock the block to the trolley, and then the trolley would take off into the barn. And then when it got where, okay, we're putting our first crop hay on this end of the barn, you would pull the rope, and it would, one side of those ropes, it would trip, and then their hay would go down into the barn. And then the guy outside would pull the trolley back, and down it would come, hook up the other set of ropes, take off again, and pull your 3 slings of hay up into the barn. That was one way of doing it. Then they had like what they call their Jackson fork, or hay spears, where you just put into the hay, load of hay, and it would amazingly hang onto the hay and pick it up and then into the barn. It'd be the same thing except less the slings. They had hay harpoons, they called them, and stuff like that for your various loads. They had about 3 or 4 different systems of it. And that's what they would load. Generally use these hay loaders to load that hay onto the wagons. When I was young, my grandpa did it that way. Later on, we still use these when we were baling hay, because we would make a nice stack outside. After the hay barn got full of square baled hay, we'd have to stack hay outside. So we'd make hay stacks outside, and then where we had marginal hay, lowland hay and stuff that was marginal, we would cut, rake it, go through with the hay loader, pick it up, and then we'd fork it on top of our bale stacks to top our stacks. We would not use plastic or anything. That was really kind of not practical. It was pretty expensive plastic back then, and so you would top your square bale stacks with hay. From what I can remember, we never had any spoilage or anything, and usually you'd end up with, we'd probably put 2 feet of that loose hay over the top of the stack with a nice crown that would shed water. You would end up with possibly 6 inches of that hay being bad, but generally about 1/3 or 2/3 of that hay was still good, that you could feed it loosely for the cattle yet. And it worked. And then the stuff that spoiled was just got thrown on a pile, and then we loaded it into the manure spreader in the springtime, and then spread it after it composted down, and then we spread it across the field. This one here is an old restored John Deere manure spreader for hauling your manure compost out onto the fields. It's beautifully done, and they work quite well. They've got a ratcheting system when they're full. They'll ratchet it to the back. These feeders here will catch it, fling it into the air. And this is what they call a fine spreader. This thing here kind of spreads it out wider on it for you. Not every farm has one on. That was their fertilizer. They fertilize everything. They're nice. That's a nice one. I prefer a rubber tired one. I've got one just almost like that, but it's rubber tires on. I do go out onto the road now and then. And sometimes the county and state gets a little upset when they see all their marks going down the road. You know, they won't let you out there to steal wheels on there. You know. So, and then they ride kind of rough on the road also, you know, and they're kind of noisy. So.
What do you think a machine like that's going to go for?
This one. I don't know. I'm guessing probably around